The opinions and views expressed in the Classified Corner podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not reflect the opinions and views of the Classified Senate, College of the Canyons, or Santa Clarita Community College District.
Pull up a chair, stop and stare, turn up the volume and adjust the contrast. And meet employees at COC, it's the Classified Corner podcast. If we played songs, you'd probably sing along, you know that they'd be some bomb tracks. But instead we choose to do interviews on the Classified Corner podcast. You will probably learn something cool. So stay right there as our guests share the stories from their possibly odd past. And here we go, let's start the show. It's the Classified Corner podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the Classified Corner podcast. This is a little show where we, myself, Nick Schutz, and Juan Renteria, we interview fellow classified professionals at College of the Canyons. Just try to find out about who they are. Today we have Velia Jimenez, who I've worked with for quite a while. We are fellow public services library media technicians. Yeah, I got that right. How's it going, Velia? How's your Friday?
My Friday has been, hello everyone, thank you. My Friday has been really busy, but it's good. You know, I was looking at the time and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have like 10 minutes left and I got some fruit to eat and right now I'm good. I'm good to, chime in.
Cool. So let's start, back in elementary school now.
Well, actually, I was a student and I remember we used to work together as a college, where we were both college assistants in the library. That was what, 2000, for me, it was 2000, I forgot what number.
Way back there.
Way back. Let's just not mention it. Yeah, it's gonna make us too old and we don't want to be too old. But I'm actually an alumni from COC. I got my associates in biology and then I transferred to CSUN. I got 2 bachelors over there, nutrition and food science. Then I, was figuring out what to do. I was a food lab tech for like 2 years. Then I got my certificate as a lactation consultant, tried to, work in that field. Didn't really work out because you need to be an RN. So then I was just like, what should I do? So then I ended up working as a health tech for a pre-K through 12 school district here in Santa Clarita, William S. Hart. So I have a lot of experience working with students. I've been working with them for for pre-K through 12 for more than 4.5 years, actually. So I was working there in the library, health office, and counseling secretary. Then I saw a position opening up at COC in the library, and I was just like, ooh, I want to go work with college students. And then I came back. I made my way back to COC, and then I was so excited working there. Working with all the college assistants. I treated them as if they were like my kids, and then I started talking to all the students there, helping them out, trying to find a way, because you know how books are so expensive. I try to find a way to help them out, letting them know, use Cam Scanner app on your phone or take pictures on your phone and save it on your actual photo album so you don't have to spend that much money. So I just, I work with you guys, with the library staff, which they're awesome. The TLC lab, I got the opportunity to work at the TLC lab study hall for the pandemic. So that was actually really cool. I never really worked in there and never actually been in that new facility because I was so used to the other one in the I building. And I still refer all the other buildings as their own name because it's so hard to remember. I just know the M building, the S building, and I say S building. And then I remember the college assistants are like, that's not what it's called. I'm like, then what is it called? And they're like, it's student. What is it? Student what? Student development or student business? What is it? The S building.
Oh,
I don't even know what the S building is.
Student center. See?
Student
center.
Thank you, producer Ashley.
Yes. See, so it's hard. I still don't remember, and I usually say the wrong names. And when I first started working at COC, coming back as as a grad, I would just say the wrong names. Bonelli is the I building.
Yeah.
M is Mentry. I still don't know the other one next to the cafeteria.
Hazley?
Hasley? Okay, so
Yeah,
that
that's
one, the weird level one
What's
that's,
the little
yeah.
cascading rocks at the bottom? Yeah.
yes. So I remember when I was a student at COC, all of these buildings, Aliso, Hasley, were just barely created. And then when I transferred, I was like, okay, I didn't even get to use these buildings. And then the village, remember the village?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember the village. I saw old pictures online of the village, and I was like, man, memories. I remember taking comms there, math and some other stuff. And it just brings back memories, like how the old building was, especially the T building, which is, do you know?
Yeah. The technology.
Towsley?
Oh,
Nelly?
no, it's across the amphitheater from Benelli. Like, sorry, not across the amphitheater. It's like past the amphitheater. Like if you're going,
They were like,
it's near Benelli.
But I
What
think
do
it's Towsley, because remember, I do remember that I was trying to stick to the first letter to what I used to know before. So the only one that kind of confuses me is Benelli, because it doesn't start with an I.
It ends with an I though.
Yes, it ends with, oh, see, that's a good thing for me to remember. Mentry starts with an M. S is student center. Towsley, I think it's that's a T. Hasley was brand new, so nothing was over there. L building, what's the L building?
I didn't know these were letters, so it's all you
Oh.
for producer Ashley.
I'm quizzing you guys.
Oh.
To me, when I took classes at TSC, I'll be honest with you, I just went to Mentry for the most part because I was taking like photo classes. So I just knew Mentry, and I would park up at the top, by the library, and we would like go down the hill. And you were talking about the village, so I think that used to be a parking lot before where faculty used to.
Yes, there used to be a parking. Yeah, and then yeah.
Can't do that.
So
really. Yeah,
and I remember, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I remember I was rappelling off of the I building. This was like in 2007 for Mesa. There used to be a tree there. I still have my old picture. There used to be a tree in the amphitheater. I go back years later and I'm like, where's the tree? So I just remember the campus, how it used to be before. And now I just walk around and I'm just kind of like, all right, let me try to remember where things are with the new names. I don't know. Did you have a hard time, Nick, trying to figure when they, okay.
I'm right there with you. Like, I can't remember the names of some of these, even presently. Like, this probably not making the library look too good right now.
I think a lot of
I know how to look it up.
Me too. Because even I was the first class when they first opened CCC, and I remember everything was like dirt lot. There was canopies. There was like literally like it's not how it looks like right now. Everything was just dirt. There was like, when is the season that gets so windy? It's that March or February, one of those two, when it's like the windy season. And I remember I was there. This was, might have been spring. Yeah, spring. And I remember it was just so windy and dirty. The sand is just blowing everywhere. I go back years later for the stargazing because I love doing that. And I'm like, wow, they have their own little coffee kiosk thing at the nurse's office. They have an amphitheater. There's grass. So I'm just like, you know what? I didn't even get to enjoy any of this when I was a student. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's why you have to get a job. Start working at COC, and then you get to see all the developments that your student center fees ended up paying for.
I know, right? Years later.
Helping pay for.
Years later.
CCC is where that's where I usually work. So I have a little bit of an excuse why I don't know all the Valencia names.
Let's just say that.
But yeah, CCC, like we're opening the Science Center very, very, very soon. It'll actually there's already instructors with having office, like with open offices there now.
Oh.
And the building will be open like by the time this is out, the building will be open and there'll be classes in there.
And then they're going to build the
And then, well,
library.
that building is currently, it's being constructed. There's the frame is up. They're putting up the frame right now. And yeah, I'm excited for that. That's where we moved to.
Same with you, Juan? Are you in the TLC or where are
No,
you?
no, no, I'm in photo, so I'm in Mentry Hall, first floor.
Oh,
And I
okay,
feel like for
okay.
me, I don't really like, it's hard sometimes to get out and walk around and I mean, you're really just kind of like in your building, right? So when I go for walks, usually when we have students on campus, I'll go for like a quick walk just to get out of my area. And usually I like to get out to help students because I'm like, I like interacting with students. So I'll go out and I'm like, somebody's lost, I'm gonna help somebody. But I feel like they always ask me for a building that I don't know. And I'm like, okay, let's go. I'll help you find it. I'll tell you where it is, but I don't know. So I'm like, don't feel bad. I've been here for a few years and I still don't remember where certain buildings are. So I'm in Entry Hall, first floor.
First floor, Mentry Hall. That's on the other side. Is that the art building side?
Basically, yeah. So first
Okay.
floor would be like photo and art. Second floor is kind of typically like graphic design. I think we have like architecture there. Third floor is like film and TV.
Okay.
But that's kind of our layout.
I remember taking photo, but it was online, so I never really got to walk around Mentry. I just remember renting the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so
you talk about change. Our facility went from like a one room kind of back room where all our equipment was stored to kind of an old, you might have, I know you said you took it online, but our old classroom, Entry Hall 121, that became our equipment checkout room. So we really outgrew that space and we have a ton of equipment. So we have, we're lucky to have the money to buy equipment that students can use and not have to buy their own equipment. So yeah.
that's cool. I like that, having them rent it, because even when I was a student at COC, I used all the facilities that was Mesa and EOPS. Mesa will let you borrow a laptop, a calculator, and they will give you supplies. Same with EOPS. And, in the long run, it really helps you out. For students who, like me, when I first started, I didn't have enough money. So having those services, I was just like, wow, even EOPS having that meal card, that was cool. I don't know if they still do that, but I think that was actually a neat opportunity for students starving students like me when I was there.
Yeah. And especially like, not that other disciplines are not expensive, but art is expensive,
Oh
you
yeah.
buy materials, you buy, this and that, and you use it. It's not like you buy a book and yeah, you typically buy a book or rent a book and then return it, sell it, whatever. But when it comes to materials, like you're making stuff, so you're using the stuff. The nice thing about that is that, like I always tell my students, you're actually making something physical. So like when we make photography or photographs in our photography darkroom, like they're making physical prints. So I'm like, you're spending money, but you're going to end up with something. So
Yes.
at least that's kind of a nice trade-off.
You bring a really good point, because both my sisters, one of my sisters, she got her associates in architecture. So all the drafting supplies, paper, ruler, all that stuff was so expensive. Then my other sister that works there too, she was an art major, and I remember her going to Kinko's before it was Kinko's, and then buying all these supplies. I forgot the actual store that was in LA, but going to this art supply, and everything was so expensive because art is expensive, but you get to enjoy it after you're done, like creating whatever you're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And actually, just to add in a little bit from a musician perspective, I still use some of the stuff I purchased as a music student like 15 years ago. So yeah, the supplies are worth something.
I think they are, because even like for musicians, like the equipment, everything, it doesn't expire like per se for food. So these type of supplies, like let's say you seal your paint properly, or your pastels, or I don't know, I really don't know the names of these stuff. I'm just throwing it out there. But I'm just like, so obviously they won't expire compared to if you were doing something that's food or science. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, shelf life definitely on instruments, because even like with materials, they will over time, lose their, let's call it, I guess, potency, right? So if you think about like certain paint or film, for example, like you have to keep it refrigerated if you want it to be, in its best condition. It does have a lifespan of best before date type of thing. Doesn't mean you can't use it. A lot of people choose to purposely like heat up film to kind of play with it, to kind of go and like, experimental. So you can still do stuff like that. But yeah, when you're a student and you're paying for your supplies and you have to take care of them and it has a shelf life, and yeah, it adds up. I mean, that's like a whole different conversation that we can have in terms of like materials. And but at least, like you said, Nick, you still have some stuff. And students who buy cameras, typically now it's changed a little bit with digital, at least in our department. Before, you would buy a film camera and it would last. I mean, we're still using film cameras from like the 60s. Easily, some of the best cameras that we have were made back then, because they're built like tanks. But yeah, now with digital, with technology, everything just seems to be, as soon as you buy it, it's pretty much like outdated.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I really like that the whole OER, the open educational resources, and the zero textbook costs. Like I really like that. That's kind of that's really expanding.
Me
Because like
too.
I mean we've all been, everybody's been there from the perspective of a starving student, like having to pay hundreds of dollars for a textbook.
Yeah, especially the science ones.
Yeah, because
Oh my goodness.
they get updated. Like
Yes.
I don't know how much more. I don't know how frequently do you need to update like a beginning algebra book? That doesn't really seem necessary. But like astronomy, they're discovering new stuff all the time.
Yeah, like Nick, remember like when we do the course reserves, we're always getting the other science-based books. We're always getting new editions, but math and engineering just stays the same. And
Yeah,
English.
Principles of physics aren't
Yes.
really changing much. They are. We have a lot more to worry about than textbook prices.
Yeah, like all those math, like Matho 70, trig, and college algebra, those books are still there. They don't go out of date or out of style. There's the same edition. Yeah.
Thank you to the the instructors and the people who coordinate the departments, not to the publishers. Just want to get that out there.
Yes. Yes.
So Velia, so you've worked with like students, you said K through 12, and then with college students. Do you have a preference of?
Well, honestly, I actually started off working with patients which were adults, and then it was pediatrics. Then it turned to infants, newborns, and then I went to K through 12, college, and now I'm back to college, patients, pediatrics. I'm still back to I'm back to all the different age groups now. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
Actually, I like babies because when they're born and I was teaching them how the mom how to like breastfeed, their cry is a little different. It's a newborn cry. It's not the annoying cry that you hear when they're like already 6 months. This cry is different that I can tolerate. And I was able to do that, right? Because, you can only tolerate so much when a baby's crying, and it's a high pitched one. And this one is like they're learning how to cry. It's not annoying. So I don't want to sound mean, but I actually do prefer newborn cry versus when they're older. When I was working with elementary, I couldn't do it. I couldn't be strict to those kids. I couldn't at all. And I remember the office manager was like, why can't you be strict? I'm like, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to make them cry, And they're like, you're not going to make them cry. You just have to be firm. I'm like, I don't want to be firm. Look at their faces. They're going to start crying, right? And yeah. And then I remember I was in the health office because I was a health tech. And I remember this one student, oh my gosh, he was a third grader. He would always come in. Before I knew it, I turned my back. This is how quick they are. Before I turned my back, he was doing a cartwheel headstand at the patient bed. I literally got so mad. I told him, like, get down and sit right there and don't move. You know the rules. You're not supposed to be doing that in the health office. You're gonna get yourself, hurt, and I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm like, do you want me to get in trouble? And they're like, no, I'm like, sit there and don't say anything. So
that's pretty good. That sounds like a good response. I probably would have been like, "Whoa, can you teach me how to do that?" Which is totally not the right response.
No,
So,
this was actually really, they were a handful, and they all knew that I was so nice that I wouldn't say anything. My health office one time, I had a total of 15 young little people, students in there screaming, shouting, jumping on the bed. And I just couldn't do it. I'm like, this is too much. I can't be firm
tap
because
out, leave.
I tapped out and I left, and I went back to junior high and high school. Luckily, a lot of people say that, oh, how can you do high school? Actually, it's not that bad. I tell people this, ninth graders, they're like so scared of everyone. 10th graders, they're like, I don't like you. Why are you talking to me? 11th graders, they have their clique. 12th graders, I want to leave already. Why am I still here? So you get to see all the different patterns. The ones that you do not want to deal with is 10th graders, because that's when they have their independence personality. Oh, no one understands me. No one gets me. So that's 10th graders. 7th and 8th graders. 8th graders are tired of being in middle school or junior high. They want to already go to high school. 7th graders, they just transition from 6th grade to 7th grade. So they're still nervous and scared. But then they learn how to be like independent and, know their well-being. They know how to like stand up for themselves. So it's interesting how you get to see how they transition from each grade. And I actually enjoyed seeing these students from 7th grade to 10th grade to like seeing them graduate, or even going from junior high to high school. And they're like, oh, weren't you at the other school? I'm like, yes, I'm here now. I'm following you, so it's actually really cool seeing those students. And then the ones who graduated, seeing me at the campus, at the library, visiting me, saying, hey, you were right. You do work here. I'm like, why would I lie? Why would I lie? I work here. So it was actually really cool seeing from 7th grade to like 12th grade, now to college. And college students, some of them are rowdy in the library. I remember this was nighttime shift. Since I'm nighttime shift, I would have a lot of issues with the noise level. And I would go upstairs, and first I'm like, hello, you guys. My name is Velia. I'm one of the library techs here in the evenings. There's been some complaints that you're being a little too loud. I can hear you all the way on the first floor. Is that true? No. And I would just tell them, if you don't lower your voices, I will have to ask you will need to leave. They're like, oh, I'm sorry. The college assistants calls me directly in my line. They're not listening. Okay, fine. And I'll go up there. All right, you guys already had one warning or 2 warning, you're out. So literally I was just like, there's no, ifs, but what, no. So with that, I kind of learned to be strict and firm from what I learned working with junior high and high school. And I took it to the college students. They might have thought that I was too firm, but at the same time, it's a library. Why are you making noise? You're supposed to be quiet. You're supposed to be studying and doing your homework. So it's not a party. If you're gonna have a party, then go outside. Even watching movies, I would go inside and ask them, is this homework related or is it just for pleasure? They're like, oh, this is for pleasure. No, you can't do this here. You need to go outside.
Headphones, or get a study room,
Mm-hmm. So the college assistants said that they liked that I was firm, because towards the end, it was more controlled. I would just do my rounds, walk around and see what's going on in the first floor, second floor. So they know that, there's someone in charge here, even though it's a college campus, but you still have to follow the rules. And the rules is, if you're being too loud and rowdy, I'm sorry, but you need to go outside, because there's students. And I take it more personally, because in the evenings, there's students who are returning students, adult students, trying to get their degrees. And you have the young ones that are like, oh, I just want to talk and hang out here. No, I take it more personal that you have your adult students. They really, really, really are trying to succeed. They just got off work. They came straight here to borrow the book, make copies, scan it, or do their homework, and then move on to the next day. So that's how I saw it. I didn't mean to be mean to them, but I'm more like, come on, you're an adult. If you want to go back to being a kid, you need to go back to high school. Then again, you do have your AOC students. So you do get to recognize, I don't know, I think I picked up like which ones are still young and immature, which ones are really taking it for reals, and then which ones are like, really, really want to like succeed and stuff. So I don't know, I think I'm an observer, so I was able just to see like the how the students were, how they interacted, and then you get to know your regulars. I actually like that. I
really like that.
Yes. Before they came to the counter, the circulation counter, I had the book ready and they're like, how did you know? I'm like, come on, you're my regular. I already know you're always asking for this book and I'm happy to let you borrow it.
It would get to the point with some students, like they wouldn't have their card, so they'd have to tell me their student ID number. And like I just from repetition, I would memorize their student ID numbers. Like, yeah.
Even the ones that didn't.
I wasn't trying to.
I know. I'm like, no, we're not trying to be creepy. The thing is that we know who you are and you're my regular, you're my frequent flyer. Yeah. I know the book, I know your number, I know who you are. You come on Tuesdays and Thursdays at this time, right? We're not being creepy. It's just that we know. And even with the ones that would never get their student ID cards, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I'm like, it's free, it doesn't cost anything.
Well, it's not just that, they've already, it does cost something, but they've already paid for it.
That's what the college assistants told me. They're like, it's part of the
student center fee.
Yes. Yeah, so I remember one time, this was spring, this one student never got his card. It was to the point that we kept on putting, those pop-up alerts on our software on Voyager, before it was Voyager.
Yeah,
the little notes. I put the little pop-up, he must have his student ID card. If not, he cannot borrow the book. Well, he kept on like, slipping until one time, one of the college assistant was sitting next to me. The guy he was about to approach. I didn't even let him talk. And this was after spring break. I told him, where's your ID? He's like, blah, 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 blah. Where's your ID? I'm like, you know the rules. We've told you, she told you, he told you, I told you, that librarian told you. Where's your ID? It's so much faster if you give me the ID because we just swipe it and that's it. And he was like, well, it's just I don't have time. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have time? You were just on spring break. You could have just stopped by and gotten the ID. And he's like, I'm like, excuses. Here's your book. Take it. He comes back the following week and he tells me, oh my gosh, I didn't know that there's so many perks to the COC ID. You get to do, the 25 scorecard, and then you get these discounts. And I'm just like, if you would have paid attention to me the first time, you would have actually had an opportunity to splurge with all these discounts. I'm like, why weren't you listening? I was just being, stubborn. I know you were. And I told him like, so now you can use CID and now you can have the book.
A lot of places, like if you have just any student ID, that gets you a discount.
Yes.
I was using my CSUN ID for years after I graduated to get
me too.
tickets at like for the LA Phil, like they do these student tickets, like $10 student tickets. I was using it for,
well, even the museums.
Honestly, if I went to try to do it, I would still try to do it with my ID from when I graduated in 2007 or something. I
still do it,
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, right. I'm like, I'm gonna use it for the museums. Sometimes they have the discount. If you're a student, show your ID. Okay, doesn't say the year or anything. So here. How about you, Juan? Do you do that too?
You know what? I don't really do it as much. I'll be honest. I don't like carrying stuff in my wallet. So if I don't need my ID, I have literally 3 cards in my wallet. I think it's my driver's license, a credit card, and a debit card. That's it. Yeah, I always tell people if I could get like microchipped where all my information was like my thumb or something, like I would be on board for that. I know like tracking and everything. I'm like, but they already know I have a cell phone. Like everybody knows everything about me. But yeah, I mean, I think what I do is I live closer to LA. So usually for the museums, they have like free days or like after a certain hour or so. Before COVID, I would just swing by and just go in and just try to not go. I would go, I guess, more frequently and spend less time there, but just kind of, because I don't know about you guys, but looking at art is, I always tell people it's exhausting, mentally exhausting, because people think, oh, you're just looking at pretty pictures, right? Like that's what
No.
they say. I'm like, yeah, you could look at it that way, but if you really appreciate things, you're looking at how it was made, what techniques they used, when it was made, what is it saying? So you're thinking, you're constantly thinking. So after a few, hours, you're like, I always tell when I go with my wife, I'm like, I'm cooked, like I'm done. Like I either need a break or we need to call it. But
That's
it's
my dad's mentality. He loves watching the strokes and how the painter was using different types of brushes, what type of like paint he was using, what was he thinking at that time, why did he pick that color, why did he pick to brush it on this side, and why is it like this. He just likes to analyze the picture, and then he just sits there and he just stares at it, and I'm just like, are you ready to go to the next one? He's like, just a couple more minutes. I'm like, okay. And then he's like, look at how they did. And I'm just like, yes, can we go to the next one? Because I want to look at the next one. So my dad actually, he takes a lot of time just looking at the art, and especially the brushes, the strokes, everything, the oils, and especially the oils, because even what's the hardest one? Is it the metal one that you sculpt? Or which one's the hardest one that you need to do? Like, is that the metal sculpture ones?
I
Because I
mean, I
know
guess
there's
it depends. I feel like some people, like if you look at Michelangelo, I mean, the guy was amazing at just
Mhm.
creating something out of nothing. There's a really nice, like, short little documentary. I don't even know if you can call it a documentary, but like a little like YouTube video on Michelangelo, and it just kind of tells you like how he worked. And I don't know how familiar and my memory is terrible, but they talk about his David. Basically, I think they had like two other sculptors look at that piece of, I believe it's marble, and they were like, no, this is useless. Like, we can't do anything with it. And he took it, and somehow in his head he was able to see, okay, this body has to be this way and leaning this way, so I could take advantage of the good pieces and the bad pieces of the marble. So I mean, some people just have that gift. So I think it's kind of relative, right? Like what's hard to someone is maybe easy to others. But I think
Mhm.
to me, sculptures is like, I don't even know how I would start with like a block of something and turn it into like a human being, or not just a human being, but like a sculpture, right? Like I could do it clay. Like if I build onto like an armature, like yeah, sure, I could probably do that. But to do like to start chipping away, like my mind just does not work that way. Like I cannot.
Yeah, I can't do that. I'm not a art person. I only do crafts, but I can't do like any types of drawing or painting, sculptures, nothing like that. That's too hard for me. I don't have I just never learned. And like you said, it's certain people have the gift. If they know how to draw, awesome. I don't know how to draw. I don't know how to play instruments.
And also too, there's a difference I think between learning how to play something and really having like that knack for it. Like for example, I'm sure Nick, you can relate. Like I can learn how to play an instrument, and if I practice, sure, I can get good at it. But if somebody really knows how to play it, like they could just play. I need to like follow something. So I feel like same thing with art. You can learn to draw, you can learn to take a photograph, but if you can't visualize it, whether it's like a drawing, a photograph, or I don't know how you visualize music, how you hear it or whatever, but I would imagine it's the same thing. Like if you don't have that, it's going to be hard for you to really like kind of develop. I think you hit a ceiling really quick. I would imagine. I at least I'll speak in terms of photography. Like some people, like I teach photography, so I know some people don't understand how to take a photo, but I could see how their mind's working conceptually. They're thinking, and I'm like, this person thinks like an artist. And then I can see somebody else who's like very mechanical, and I can see, oh, this person understands the technical, but they don't understand the
Mhm.
art part. So I think it's, you kind of need a little bit of everything sometimes to really succeed. But it's interesting because I feel like for me, I wouldn't understand with music how to just make it good. If that's like really, really basic, right? But I feel like I could play stuff and
Just
follow repeat, but to feel it like that, I don't know if I have that yet,
you
right? Or
just turn up the make it good fader. That's what we
I
do.
haven't seen that fader yet anywhere, so I gotta pay for the full unlock to the license or something. So
I, I think I totally get what you're saying, and I mostly agree, but I think like if you are one of those people who's more I guess tech technically based rather than artistic, I think like if you really work and develop that technique, like I think that what's the saying? Hard work beats talent if talent refuses to work hard, or something like that. And I think that applies in artistic settings too, at least from my experience as a musician and observing fellow musicians.
I think you can definitely get, from one point to the other. Like you could kind of like go, across the spectrum. I think one of the ways I look at it, anytime I talk to my students about art and photo, I always talk about food and chefs and kitchens. And I know, Velia, you mentioned you like to cook, so maybe you can kind of relate. But I always tell people like it really, a lot of it comes from feel. Like you have to kind of feel and know what you're doing. So I always tell my students, a chef is going to know what goes well together. I like to cook, but I need to look at recipes, and then I get my right. So I'm like, okay, I can get to that point. So yeah, if I said, look, I'm gonna just dedicate like the next 5 years of my life to just understanding food, I can be an amazing chef. But I always tell my students, because they'll always say like, oh, I have a really bad camera, and I wish I could have taken a better photo. And I tell them, look, if a professional chef came into my kitchen with my kind of mediocre knives and pots and pans and spices, you name it, they would make an amazing dish. And if I went into their professional kitchen, their dish would be a million times better than mine, because it's not about your, what you have around you. It's you got to know what to do with what you've got. So I think same thing with music, with anything. I think it's just about kind of knowing what goes well, right? And having the eye for that. But yeah, you can train your
Develop
brain.
that.
Yeah, totally.
You're absolutely right, because even when I go to my brother's house, he has, he's a bachelor, so he has some stuff in his kitchen, and I try to whip up something. I'm like, okay, let me make him something. And yeah, in the end, I'm like, okay, did you like it? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, I think it's like you just have to use your creativity and just kind of think outside the box, kind of brainstorm. Like,
Velia, what do you two questions. What do you like to cook? And going by Juan's definition, which I totally agree with and have actually talked about, like with my partner, where a chef is like kind of someone who can visualize the completed thing rather than having whereas he and myself, like we have to follow recipes. I can make a really good dish if you give me the steps to make a really good dish. Where do you see yourself on that, like chef down to wherever spectrum?
I actually do follow recipes, but I tweak them. I tweak them. So let's say it's a recipe that's not 100% healthy. I tweak it so it can be healthy. And I actually love cooking Italian dishes and Mexican dishes. So those are my two favorite things. And I just love mixing like Mediterranean style with Spanish style foods. So it's like a weird combination. And then I like doing like, I don't know, it's different. I think it just depends what I'm in the mood for. Like for instance, I learned to make taquitos, are like little tacos I bake them, so I roll them up and I use shredded chicken, rotisserie shredded chicken, and then I add spices, vegetables, not too much because you don't want to over empower it. And then with the spices, you don't want to over empower it because then it tastes too much vegetables instead of the actual meat. So I just try to like control it so it won't be too much. And then I just try adding, like the recipe that I found didn't even ask for this. I just wanted to tweak it around and add more stuff. And I have a friend who's actually a professional chef. He owns his own business and he works for one of those senior living centers in Simi Valley. And I asked him, hey, you as a chef, what do you follow recipes? He's like, oh yeah, I follow recipes, but I also tweak them around. It's okay if you tweak it around. I'm like, okay, good, because I thought I was just doing, he's like, no, you're fine. He's like, you do what you like and what your taste buds is feeling for that day. And that's what I liked. I remember making whole wheat pasta. No, whole wheat pie crust, apple pie crust. And instead of using it inside the kitchen, the oven, because it was so hot, this was like 2 years ago before the pandemic, my dad actually wanted to grill it outside, grill the pie outside.
Huh.
The crust burnt because I asked my friend, what did I do? What happened? He's like, you didn't do the whole, put a pot on the bottom, put water, and then put the pie on top. So you can let evaporate the steam, but you can still use it. You can still use the grill outside. You cover it, but the same steam cooks it. I was like, that's what I want to do next time. I want to try that. So I'm always into like trying to find something different instead of not just using the stove and the oven. I want to use the grill, but use it as a like an oven style. Be creative. I don't know. So, and I know I went off topic, but but I just like experimenting with foods. Like I don't like frying because frying is bad, you know, and it's not good for your health. So I like baking, and it's just finding different ways how to bake a tortilla, how to bake grill or bake your vegetables, and just finding, and even like bake your fish in the oven. But I want to try and experiment using the actual grill outside. And I like watching KCT, some of those cooking shows, because they actually have the grill outside and it's the chef that's cooking outside. And he's like, okay, so for this, we're going to do this, this, and that. I'm just like, ooh, okay. They have certain stuff, and what are they going to try to attempt and invent? So I think it's pretty cool. Like, I don't know. I think it's cool if you think outside the box and you're not just using an oven, because you know how people, they go outside and they're camping and they have their own little fire pit. They have to find a way how to like survive and make food. You don't have an oven, you don't have an actual stove, so you have fire. And how are you gonna like, cook certain stuff? So I think that's actually pretty neat.
It's cool to learn. And yeah, you were talking about like how your friend like was considering how the steam like would affect that's the other thing that chefs can, like, they know the chemistry.
Yes. And that falls into my first bachelor's food science, that I think I still have the book. I have to go back and look at the book, because I was actually taking a food science lab experimenting how to cook different ways with different oils with the same recipe. Let's say you're cooking a cookie, but you're using different oils. Which of all these oils, which ones did you like in the end? It's like the America's Test Kitchen on KCT. I love watching that because it's food science related. And they're using like, okay, we're going to use this type of pot, but then there's this other type of pots that are different types of materials. Which of all these 4 different types of pots, which one cooked it the best or whatever, which one tastes good, or which one saved you on time? So I actually love watching those type of shows, because I'm like, oh, okay, let's see, we're experimenting. So
yeah, I think the interesting thing is the science behind, like, I was really lazy to use my cast iron skillet for a really long time because it's so heavy, and then I started using it. I was like, man, the food tastes so much better. I was grilling chicken, and I would always use like other pans, but then I remember one day the best chicken I've ever made in my life came off of that like skillet, and to this day I'm like, I'll use the skillet. But it's interesting because you mentioned like using like very limited things or different things, and I think it's part science and part creativity. And I think we can all kind of agree, like Nick and music, myself visual arts, and you, Velia, are talking about cooking, and it's really like you're talking about trying different things. And I think that's the important thing as someone who's creative, is like you have to push those boundaries and basically break something, right? Because then like it either worked or it didn't, and if it didn't work, what went wrong, so it could hopefully work next time. And I think as visual, not even as visual, as artists, I think I consider myself an artist. I feel like mistakes are basically kind of the next step to kind of that drawing board. Like, okay, how did it fail? Why did it fail? Where did it fail? Those questions, and then we move forward. So I think it's important to. I thought it was interesting when you're like, oh, I like to do like weird things or something. I'm like, weird. It's weird because it hasn't been done. But if you come onto something, right? If you have some kind of breakthrough, it's no longer going to be weird. I think it's just like you have to find it. So I think it's. I like that you try different things and try things.
Even when my family's barbecuing, they're doing the carne asada, I try to find different ways to grill, or even grab foil, put olive oil, salt and pepper, and then just mix it around really well with my zucchini, the onions and tomatoes. Try to and then even with the potatoes, because even with the potatoes, we did it last week. The potatoes had absorbed all the juices from all of those vegetables that it released. And then I put a little bit of butter, not a lot, okay? Just a little bit of butter. You still need to have a little bit of fat, not too much. And it's just to make it juicy and good. And I remember my brother-in-laws, they were like, what did you put? I'm like, why? Is it bad? They're like, no, it just tastes different, but it's good. I'm like, oh, good. Yeah, and it was just like, all those juices, like especially the tomatoes and the onions and the zucchini, absorbing with the potatoes, and you're eating it, you get to enjoy the vegetable, even though you're like, there might be people who don't like vegetables, like my brother-in-laws, but they ate it and then they're like, wow, this was actually really good. And I tell them, and you cut your vegetables in.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just like making it right. Have you heard of the show? And I don't know what order it is, but it's basically like salt, heat, acid, and fat. It's on Netflix, and it's 4 episodes.
Oh, let me write that down. Salt. What is
Yeah,
it?
it's basically like salt, acid, heat, and fat. You know,
Acid,
some
heat.
kind of combination of those four things. And there's 4 episodes. Each episode is dedicated, like the salt one's dedicated to salt, and they talk about, you know, what salt does to food and blah blah blah, right? And then acid and you know, that sort of thing, and the heat cooking process. So it's really interesting because one of the things when you mentioned, you know, a little bit of butter, I'm always really hesitant to add butter because I'm like, oh, I don't want to add too much butter. But then after watching certain shows, like I'm starting to understand, like, fat is important. Fat is
It
flavor.
is really important.
And salt is, you know, important too, because I always thought like, oh, I don't want, you know, too much sodium. But then it's hard sometimes. I think it's all about education, right? Once you educate yourself, you're like, okay, it's important to do this for this reason. So I think you should check out that show.
I always tell my patients, it's all about moderation, balance, and variety. You can just try to balance it, but don't put too much in there. So you need to, you know, just try to like tweak it around. And if just start cutting back a little bit, but if it needs it a little bit more, just add a little bit, just like, you know, like a cat, like just go little, and then you just, you know, there's nothing, I tell my patients, because when I'm educating them, I tell them, you know, I'm not saying no, I'm saying there's a balance and there's moderation and there's different alternatives. So I'm never telling you no, because I do not want to deprive you, because then you're going to binge on the food that you're not supposed to. And I always tell my patients that I'm like, if you're going to put butter, just a little bit, don't put too much, just so you can have the little fat, juicy flavor, but then mix it with another oil so you can cook it. So
yeah, I actually wanted to, since we've got you, I are there any nutrition tips that you, any particular favorite nutrition tips that you would like to share, or that you wish
well,
you
today I just finished working on triglycerides, how to lower your triglycerides. I was working on a handout for one of my coworkers at the clinic. They were asking that a lot of the patients, I've noticed a lot of the patients during the pandemic, there has been a lot of different types of mixed hyperlipidemia, different types of cholesterol, LDL, HDL, and triglycerides, all the different bad cholesterols. And a lot of these patients, they're always asking, then what am I supposed to eat? What am I supposed to eat? So I always tell them, okay, you know, you need to lay off of fried, greasy foods, and also refined carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates. Even I tell my pediatrics, some of my pediatrics have high triglycerides. A lot of them have high triglycerides. And I tell them, I'm not telling you no. I'm just telling you, your mind, when you take a bite, the first 3 bites, it sends a signal to your head, to your brain, that you're satisfied. You don't need to eat the whole entire thing. Your mind is just craving a little bit, not the whole entire thing. You're just eating the whole entire thing because you're bored. I'm like, but if you just take the little first 3 tips or whatever, balance it with something else. So I always tell everyone, my favorite thing is fiber. Fiber is your best friend. Fiber lowers your cholesterol. Fiber helps your gut. Fiber gets rid of all the toxins in your body. Fiber also, you know, helps you with everything. Like, it's like a soap. And I tell my pediatric patients, think of your fiber as a soap. It's coming out of your whole entire little organs and goes all the way through your large intestine, small intestines, to your stomach. Everything comes out, right? And then what must come in must come out, right? And I tell them, are you constipated? Yes, you need to eat more fiber and drink more water. They're like, why? I'm like, fiber is your best friend. Think of it as a soap. Everything must come out. I'm like, everything? I'm like, trust me, you'll see that your skin clears up. You don't feel tired. You don't have a brain fog. That's my biggest thing. My biggest thing. And I could just go on fiber. And my fiber is just like, I always tell people, look at the package. It has to say 3 grams or more. That's considered great. And then I tell them, get the cereal that's 8 grams. If it doesn't have any sugar, add fruit. the fruit will add more fiber to it, and it will sweeten it, naturally sweeten it. So I tell my pediatric patients, I'm like, it's okay if the cereal is whole grain, just add fruit, add walnuts, add almond chips, add chia seeds, make it fun, make it exciting, make it like an art. Like that's how I see with food that's healthy. Make it healthy, make it a fun, healthy, artful, colorful plate. And I was showing a video, and they were showing them how to get cooking original oatmeal, and then they added cinnamon and banana, and then the video paused, right? And I tell them, what do you guys think is missing in this oatmeal? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, you don't think it's too bland? It's too beige and yellow? I'm like, wouldn't it look nice if you put some, strawberries, right? Strawberries, put some blueberries, add color, and then add some almond chips so you can get your omegas, your nice healthy oils. And then they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, make it a nice, colorful plate. And that's I always tell people, like, fiber has always been my favorite topic. It's in everything. It's all in your carbohydrates, which is your actual breads. If you want to think about it, is your whole wheat breads, all your grains, your vegetables, your fruits. There's also simple carbs in your milk, which is the sugars. So I just start educating them about like the carbs and then the fiber.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, like you said, needs to, I mean, they do say you eat with your eyes first, right? So if it doesn't look good, you're not gonna want to eat it. And if it even if it tastes good, it doesn't look good. I've had things where I'm like, oh, this looks, or it tastes better than it looks. But I think a lot of it is like, if it looks good, you're gonna be interested.
Yes.
Like, I have no problem eating veggies and fruits and all that stuff, but I know there's people who, you tell them it's, it has veggies or fruits or it's healthy, and they're like, oh, it's not gonna taste good. I'm like, that's because you haven't had food that actually tastes good. And like you said earlier too, knowing how to like balance flavors. Because if it just tastes like, spinach, then yeah, that's not going to be very good. But if you can kind of make it to where it tastes like something else, then yeah, you can start to kind of play with that too.
And same with spinach. My favorite is spinach with slices of strawberries. Then you have your raspberry vinaigrette or balsamic vinaigrette. Then you throw in some almond slices, and some nuts.
Yeah, like that, like life, right? You got to balance everything, just make it kind of be right. 300%. I think I think as a kid I wasn't big on like vegetables. I was all about like, just give me the meats, give me the sweet stuff. And then as I got older, I was like, you know what, vegetables are good. Like I started trying different things, different ways. Like one of my favorite things is to grill stuff, throw stuff on the grill, a little bit of oil, and just kind of put it on I have another like a cast iron kind of griddle, and just grilling corn, grilling like bell peppers, and it's just like, I don't know, it just tastes good.
It tastes different. And then you also get the natural mineral, the iron, from your cast iron. So the meat or the food is absorbing it, and then you're ingesting it, but it's natural. It's a natural stone. So if, let's say, also for moms, or not moms, but females who are low in iron, we always tell them cook with the cast iron, and then you'll increase your iron level. Or if you're anemic, cook with cast iron, and it will help you. You don't have to take the supplements. Just keep cooking on the cast iron.
Yeah, and it tastes good. Like I said, I love that cast iron cooked food. So totally.
I'm a little of a foodie.
You grow food too?
I tried, but I think once I have my own place, since I still live with my parents, they have their garden, so it's flowers. Yeah. So I think once I have my own place, I would love to grow my zucchinis, my tomatoes. It's just, it'll be nice. It'll be organic. I hate using the word organic, but it'll be 100% natural.
It's like, where it comes from. Like that's the big thing. Like, I live in a small place, and we have like a tiny little balcony. So we don't really have room to grow like, fruits and veggies as we really wish we could. But yeah, like there's so many things you can grow, and it's so easy if you just put a little bit of time, a little bit of time per day. You can get some really good tasting food.
And talk to them, they sense your energy. If you talk to the plants, they'll, I don't know. I am a strong believer that if you talk to your plants, they will listen to you.
I I talk to my plants.
See, I think okay.
I don't know if it's I don't know if it's for them or if it's for me. It's probably more for me. Because that keeps the voices in my head quieter. No. But like I worry about getting like too attached. Like, okay, so I have a plot at a community garden, and all of my tomatoes and some neighbors, they all got like destroyed by spider mites this year.
Oh.
And like the last few were ones that I had started from seed, like
Yeah.
I started them in little eggshells, and then I put them in bigger things, and then I put them in the garden. They were doing well, except for this spider mite infestation. But
Oh.
with that, once it's going, you can't do anything about it. You have to tear them out. So I grew these things from seed, and like I have to
It was
yank
your
them out.
baby, you
Right.
know?
So I'm saying, like, being like talking to them kind of like contributed to the feeling of attachment,
Yeah.
which overall I think it's a good thing, because I'll care more about taking care of them. But like that hurt. I teared up. I teared up having to destroy these four
I
plants.
will
I couldn't
definitely
even
be
put them in the compost. I had to throw them straight into the trash.
Oh, see, that's another thing. I actually want to start doing my own compost, but just be careful not to like have it like a really good one, because you know how where I live, there's a lot of raccoons and possums. So, and skunks. Those are the top 3 ones that I have here. And I just don't want them to go inside and make a mess and, surprises in the morning. Yeah.
At my another short little gardening story. At my community garden, we have like a compost setup where there's a bunch of bins, and theoretically every week you turn the stuff from one into the next. I just did this the other day, and I noticed, like, I saw a mouse, or I saw a couple mice like come out of this little den.
Those are
And
called fruit mice. I took an epidemiology class at CSUN, and they're just fruit mice. They're not harmful. Was it small? Was it really, really small?
yeah, they were pretty small.
Oh yeah, so those are the fruit mice, and those are the ones. They don't carry any rabies or anything like that. Well, some of but all they want is just the food, and they call them fruit mice. They're scared. They're more scared of you than. So. But yeah, I remember seeing one, because for a while I had a green apple tree in my backyard, strawberries and grapes, and I remember that we were seeing a lot of fruit mice. My mom couldn't understand that. I'm like, no, these are not the ugly ones that come in the house. These are the ones that actually want to eat. They're healthy. They're vegans. They're not gonna eat you. So I don't know. I like those. They're tiny. They're cute, but I wouldn't want to be near them.
But so like one or two popped out and like scurried over to a different. They just scurried away. But then I was just sitting and watching, and gradually more and more mice came out of this den and relocated. They all eventually went to the same place, but there was at least 10. I stopped watching after 10 of them came out. But it was, I don't know, I just sat there like entranced. I was like my own nature show right there.
Did you see the leader?
There was one that kept kind of like popping out to me.
Yeah.
I thought they were maybe saying like, hey, over here. I don't want to like, I don't know how mice work with that. I don't want to.
Me neither. I just wasn't sure if there's a leader.
I don't know. So Velia, we have this loose section of this loose podcast where so it started off called the lightning round, just kind of by default. Like, we've heard the term lightning round used on a bunch of other shows for just like quick question answer type thing. It's modified, it's evolved or devolved, I don't know, over the course of a few episodes. But one thing we started doing was having the current guest have the current guest rename this segment for the next guest. So like we start out with lightning round. This is the sprint round. Bum ba dum bum 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 bum. And like I said, it's loose structure. I like asking, what kind of stuff are you into? The other day you and I were talking about Netflix shows, and you had named a bunch of stuff that I'd never heard of. So I don't know, you have any Netflix recommendations?
Well, I just
Besides
finished, besides the one
popular
I
stuff?
told you guys.
Or besides like really popular stuff that anybody'd be recommending?
Oh.
Like the chess show. What was that? Oh my God. What?
Queen's
The
Gambit.
Queen's Gambit. Yeah. Sorry. Jeez.
I haven't watched it. I hear it's good, but
It's really good. It's really good.
Is that the one that's in Spanish?
No.
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 I mean, obviously languages, but not native. Not native.
I think I was watching a different one.
So
Never mind, I don't think it's that
your
one.
like top 3, like if you had to just, like Nick said, just 3 recommendations that maybe you're not,
Let's see. Let me go on my phone right now. Yes, because I have them here.
Yeah,
And I'm waiting for the season.
Yeah,
So
I was
let's
watching
see.
or looking at a list of shows that have been renewed and canceled, and I know there's some good stuff. I don't watch a lot of TV. I'm really lazy to watch TV. I hate watching TV. Like sitting down and watching something, it's hard for me.
What about as like background noise?
Yeah, I'll usually let it play. But to really, again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier with like watching or looking at art. Like I really pay attention, even though I have a terrible memory, but I really kind of focus and really pay attention. So at that moment, like I'm invested 100%. But then, if I put something on just to put it on, like I'm fine with that. So I feel like it's work for me to like sit down and do it. So I'm like, I have to be in the right, like, kind of mindset. So
I combine it with like eating. Like I'll sit down to watch something while I'm eating a meal, but then like if I sit down to watch something, I get hungry. So that's not a good. I don't think that's a good connection to have in my brain.
yeah.
So, Velia, this is supposed to be your round for sprinting.
Okay,
Sorry.
That's okay. The one that I was watching is called Sweet Magnolias.
What's
This
that?
one, it's more like it's a lady, it's a mom, single mom, trying to find, trying to balance work, life, romance. So this is more like for, like a chick flick kind of. The other one, let's see, because I was actually waiting for them. Let's see.
Yeah, my wife always says she tricks me into watching TV. She's like, she puts something on that she knows I'm gonna like, and then I kind of like, I get invested, and I'm like, okay, I'm in. Yeah. What's your number 2, Velia? What you got?
Number 2 is Grace and Frankie.
My wife watches that one. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's an older lady, couples, they're divorced, their spouses are gay, they hook up, they get married. So now the ex-wives they ended up being best friends, and they just live together, they go through obstacles. So that one's interesting.
Yeah, that one's interesting in a good way. When I said interesting, I hope it didn't go off the wrong way, but I don't want to say, you know what I'm talking about, Velia, but it's like there's things in there you're like, oh, it's kind of, it's a funny, like feel good, interesting show. So
yes.
I've caught episodes. My wife watches that, so I've caught episodes of that one.
The other one, it's The Baker and the Beauty. This takes place in Miami.
Yeah, I've seen previews for that one.
Okay, this one is the baker, which is the guy, and he starts dating a supermodel, and the supermodel starts liking him regardless where his upbringing and what he is. So yeah, that one's interesting.
Is that a comedy or a?
It's a comedy, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Romantic comedy.
Yeah, and Firefly Lane.
I've heard of that, but I have no idea. Like people have told me to watch that one.
So this one's like it's a journalist. So they're 2 best friends. They've known each other since like grade school. One of them is divorced, has a kid. The other one it's not married, but she has a lot of like daddy issues, family issues. So they're both best friends, but they both balance each other and they help each other out. And then the last one that I was watching is called You.
Is that with the guy and it's about stalking possibly?
Yeah. The psycho, what is it called? He's just creepy. He just stalks the girls. He starts to get to know them. Once he gets to know them, he kills them, and then he moves on to the next girl. And then, yeah,
I'm kind of committed. I think there's 2 seasons of that, right? If I'm not mistaken.
There's 2 seasons, yes.
So I told my wife, because I kind of got into that one, but I'm like, I'm just gonna like speed watch it on YouTube through like recaps, and I'll watch season 3 because I'm like, I'm not gonna sit there and watch the whole thing. But it was kind of interesting. I just kind of got hooked a little bit on that one.
Actually, I do. The first season takes place in New York. That one was slow. I didn't really like it. I enjoyed season 2. Takes place in LA. So the characters that were in season 1 come into follow him in season 2. And I don't want to give it away, but
no spoilers. We don't want.
Yeah, no. It's yes, it's actually good, because in the beginning I'm just like, this is kind of boring. This is weird. No, you have to keep watching and it gets better. And then the last one that I got into is called Evil. This one takes place using a psychologist, a priest, a Catholic priest, and a high tech guy. So any type.
Do they walk into a bar? Sorry, it just sounded like the beginning of a joke. Never mind. Sorry. I'm sorry. That was unnecessary.
I got it.
Go ahead.
Okay. I got him a little slow.
That was dumb.
No. This one's actually interesting. They just try to figure out what are these type of weird, creepy, crazy things that are happening. And I shouldn't be watching it, but I'm watching it. But it has like the devil, and it's just, it's a little creepy. That's why I don't want to watch it at night.
Yeah, you were saying you wanted to. We have to leave this interview a little early because Velia wants to watch this before it gets dark.
Yeah, it's creepy. I watched it till 11. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna stop. No more. Gonna watch something happy and clear my mind so I won't get like any creepy dreams. But yeah, but it's actually interesting. They try to find like, okay, why is this person experiencing this? Is it because of some mental illness, or do you need to get the priest to do some exorcism, or is it something in the house or something that they're experiencing that's like high-tech interference stuff? So those are the ones.
Cool. It's a good list. I think there's some stuff on there that I'll try to check out.
Yeah, I haven't heard of
any of them.
Yeah.
And then all the other ones that I used to binge watch were Marvel and DC. So
So maybe kind of switching gears a little bit, kind of have a question about soccer. I know you like soccer. What's your favorite team?
Well, team-wise, I don't really follow. I'm more with the actual like World Cup when it's Mexico or some other countries. I just like watching like who's gonna win it, because they're fighting for the little ball, they're fighting for the little ball to score, and then they move on to the next, team, and then in the end, who is the winner. But my family always laughs at me because I see the soccer players, even though they're professionals, they're crying on TV, and I'm just like, no, don't cry, you'll try again next time. But there is no next time because they get eliminated. So, but yeah, this is my
4 years.
4 years. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I know this is probably old news by now, but are you watching because of the airtime difference? But the Olympics, like the soccer Olympics, because I know like at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. So I don't know.
I know my dad didn't get up early. My dad and my brother are watching it, but I think my dad, the earliest was like 5 in the morning for some of them. Yeah. I'm still asleep. I'm not a more.
They're starting at like 4 in the morning.
4, yeah.
To watch. I think there was one at 3.
Mm-hmm.
Because my wife likes soccer, I like soccer, so we got up and we watched the Mexico. Who did they play? I'm blanking. Doesn't matter. But we watched one, and then we woke up for the next one, which was actually this last Wednesday, and we were lazy. We're like, you know what? No, and they actually won that one. So, they lost against Japan, and then they won against France. No. I'm jumbling everything up. Anyway, I was curious to see if you were keeping up with the
I
game.
haven't been keeping up because if I wouldn't be sleeping.
I know it's
So
hard.
it's hard, and I don't have DVR to like record all those shows, not the shows, all those games. So yeah, I'm not watching it. I haven't been paying attention to the Olympics, as well. I don't know who's winning. I don't know, any
Yeah.
of those sports, but when it's the World Cup, I do pay attention. I even download the app on my phone, and when I'm working, which I shouldn't be doing this, but when I'm working, I stream it, I live, and I'm watching the game, and I have it really low so no one can hear it. Yeah.
The downside for you guys in the library is that you have to keep it down. We actually, in our equipment checkout cage, we put it on, or in one of our computer labs, we'll put it on, and usually people are okay with it. So for the World Cup, we've done that before, where depending on what time, if students are here, we'll put the games on, and it's kind of fun because students will pop in, they hang out for a bit, and then they leave. But yeah, I think a lot more people get into the World Cup. So next
And then
year,
the next one is going to be Qatar.
yeah, coming up next year. So
Yeah, next December, right?
is it December?
Yeah, I think they
Oh,
said December
you're right. You're right.
because of the heat. Yeah.
It's like it's not usually in the winter, but
Yeah,
right,
but for them, especially for the heat, and I'm kind of surprised that they actually did allow it, knowing how much of the country is very conservative, that they know that it's going to be a lot of different personalities, countries with different types of,
use. Yeah.
yes.
So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting, but it makes money. So money.
That's true. It makes money. And then with the whole COVID, I hope that everything gets under control, because even right now, I did see that at the Olympics, a lot of those are like the numbers have spiked up in Japan, and Japan had everything under control. So
Yeah.
Yeah, they had to like say, okay, no spectators.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
huge.
I know.
Well, I think we got one more thing for you. We talked about the sort of evolution, how it's evolved. The name. What name would you like to sort of give this segment to the next guest? You're passing the torch down. We'll keep an Olympic kind of reference there.
Ooh,
That
okay.
was good. That was a good one.
Yes, I like that. I like that. I want to use Olympics, something Olympics. Just don't know what.
Okay. I remember, I think it was Justin that came up with another one to use in case of
I think you threw out a few. You're right.
blanking. One of them was ping pong, I think.
Oh,
Which
I like that.
I if you want to call it ping pong, or you want to stick with the Olympic thing and call it the table tennis round, I don't know.
I actually do like ping pong because
Ping
you're
pong
gonna,
round?
yeah, because you're gonna,
yeah.
because it's to the next person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So thank you, Justin.
Yes.
I think that was Justin.
We'll have to kind of have Ashley, or we'll double check that and correct it. We will. So, I think Velia, we want to thank you as always. Thank you so much for your time. I do want to make sure that we give you an opportunity if there's anything that you missed, or you want to just kind of circle back around, or if you have any questions for us, let us know. Otherwise, we're pretty much winding down. And again, want to make sure that that we're really grateful that you did this for us.
Oh, of course, this was fun. I like Nick knows I talk a lot. So yeah, this was really fun. I had fun. This is a good Friday. Friday.
Friday.
I had no idea like who you were, and like I said, I've interacted with your sister a little bit, but it was really nice to see you and get to know you a little bit. So that's again part of the goal of these podcasts, is to just bring people on, because I don't know how many people know you. And like I said, I'll be honest and say I did not know you existed on COC campus, right? So now I know, like, I didn't even know that Marilyn had a sister, and now I know a little bit more about you. So it was a cool Friday. I agree. Really good conversation. So yeah, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, this was fun. I actually enjoyed it. Yeah. Now some people will know me, but I will no longer be classified.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you want to just kind of announce that? Like,
oh yes. Okay. Well,
I wanted to bring it up, but it didn't come up naturally until just right now.
I know. Yes, I'm leaving. I'm a little, mixed emotions, but I'm leaving the library to pursue into becoming an adjunct professor, the health science department. And I'll be teaching dual enrollment high schoolers online. So they're taking college credit classes, and it's the health science 149. It's the nutrition, fitness, and balanced living class. So I'm excited. I need to kind of tweak and create my own curriculum. And yeah, and I start like the class starts in 2 weeks. So
Wow.
yeah.
You're the best. So
Thank you. So I'll be working on this over the weekend. Just have to work on my Canvas show.
awesome.
Thank you very much. Congratulations on the new position. Your students will be lucky to have you teaching them. Thank you, Velia.
No problem. This was fun. Thank you.